afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another session on Anviti Connect. Today, we are going to speak on general facts and information about COVID-19. There's a lot going on outside in our lives, and we thought we'll just summarize and collate all the information that's available in the general space and, bring it forth together for you guys. My name is Dr. Tanvi Parkar. I am basically working as a health risk consultant at Anviti. I am a master's in health administration and I'm a dentist by profession as well. So quickly taking you through the session, we'll begin with so just reiterating some facts there. I'm sure there would be a lot of things that you guys would already be know. There would be some things that you would not be knowing and could be new to you guys, but just to build the flow of it. So COVID-19 is just what is it exactly? So COVID-19 basically is an acronym or a short form that stands for Coronavirus Disease of 2019. The name was given to it by WHO. The disease is called as COVID-19. The virus is known as the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2. Sorry, novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2. Let's talk a minute about the incubation period. So the incubation period is basically the time between one contracts an infection, that means the virus enters into your body, and appearance of the first sign or symptom, or so either it's a sore throat or cough or fever, etc. There is a number of days that happens from the virus entering you in your system, and you get the first infection that is called as incubation period. And for coronavirus, incubation period is about 14 days with an average of about a week. So within a week, you generally people have been showing symptoms. Why are we talking about this is because every organism, be it a bacteria or a virus, does have an incubation period. The longer the incubation period, in this case, as you're seeing, a week to 2 weeks, makes the patient is at that particular point in time asymptomatic. He may not have shown any symptoms, but he is infected, and he is going to spread the infection to others if he gets in contact with other people. And therefore it's very important to take all the measures while you are roaming around, or with your friends and family. Quickly touching upon the symptoms of COVID-19, most of us are aware of what are these symptoms. Now, these symptoms, where we are saying it's most common and a little less common, are kind of interchangeable, because most people can get any of these symptoms or only of any of these symptoms. So, most commonly seen symptoms are, of course, fever. There's a cough that is dry cough. By dry cough, we mean that you're coughing, but there's no sputum coming out, so there's no cough. The sputum that is generated does not come out, but you're having a severe cough. That is a sign, symptom. Then your general weakness, generalized malaise, tiredness is one of the symptoms of COVID-19. Other symptoms are general aches and pains, general body aches, joint aches are one of the symptoms. Sore throat is also one of the common symptoms of COVID-19. Gastrointestinal symptoms like diarrhea, loose motions have been seen in a lot of people. For some of these people, that have been the only symptom, in some mild cases, that has been the only symptom also, without a fever or a sore throat or a cough. There's a lot of headache. Most times now we are seeing that there's headache. There's also a loss of taste and smell. Or taste or smell in some of the cases. In some of the cases, there are skin and mucous membrane lesions. There are certain rashes. These rashes also could be inside your mouth, so there could be oral rashes as well. So you need to just keep a check on that. Certain serious symptoms is, of course, a lot of shortness of breath, very much difficulty in breathing. There could be, because you cannot breathe and you're taking a lot of effort to breathe, there could be a pressure on your chest, so pain or pressure in your chest. Loss in movement of speech, or loss of movement or speech is also one of the severe symptoms. You need to seek immediate medical attention for if you just seeing any of the severe symptoms. Quickly talking about variants of virus, this is something which is happening across our country and across other countries as well, but more rampant going on right now also in our country. So a variant is typically when a virus is evolving. It's basically enters a system, a host, and it starts multiplying. It multiplies in a very rapid manner. During this rapid multiplication, where what is also doing, it is adapting to its environment. So it's adapting to the host cells and the immune system of the host cell. And what is also trying to do is increase its infectivity, and therefore it makes certain changes in its structure, and these structural changes basically creates into like a new strain or variant of virus. So there are three new variants of viruses in India, which are very commonly seen these days. One is of course the UK variant. The Indian origin of double mutant virus is something which we are seeing very rampantly, and there's also cases of triple mutation in these viruses. Why we're talking about this is because these mutated viruses, these variants, are again very highly infectious. Um, there is a possibility, it's not really, I mean, there are studies going on, but it could be potentially airborne, therefore the spread is very rapid. um, uh, One area of critical issue is that this viruses is not only affecting older people as it was before sometime last year, but it is more and more affecting the younger people and the healthier population. And also the mortality risk, like the risk of death, is also higher with this virus. This is not to scare you or anything, it's just general information, and we need to keep looking at ourselves, and prevention is better. We talk a little bit about transmission. We all know how the transmission happens. It's basically because of the droplets that are released into the air from the infected persons. This spread could be a direct spread, basically droplets falling off the from the an infected person while he's talking, sneezing, coughing, etc., and somebody coming in contact with these droplets, especially if they are in close vicinity with these infected persons. There's an indirect spread, basically if these droplets have fallen on any of the surfaces. There's a varied survival of the virus on various surfaces, and therefore if you touch these surfaces and then touch any of the openings in your face or body, like the nose, mouth, ears, eyes, then that's how the virus can also spread. There are in some cases seen air. We talk about airborne spread. This airborne spread especially happens when, in a non-ventilated or a closed space where there's a lot of people together. So there's no distancing that is maintained. So what is happening is there's no space for these droplets to actually settle down and fall off. But then it's just that's the how it is just spreading from one person to another, where it's not really the distance is not happening. So there needs to be, mostly if they are spreading airborne through in an enclosed space where there's a lot of exposure, like someone's talking and continuously, or sneezing continuously, coughing continuously, and there are a lot of people in close vicinity. And of course, if there's in this closed space also, if there is inadequate ventilation, then the chances are higher. We talk a little bit talking about transmission of COVID-19. So infectivity of COVID-19, of course, one depend on the infectivity of the agent itself. So that's the reason we spoke a little bit about the variants of the virus. Of course, the susceptibility of population is also taken into consideration, and that is what the vaccines try to do, to reduce the susceptibility of an individual and in effect the population of the towards this infectious agent. And of course, how much are these population exposed to this virus? So just we'll touch upon a little bit in detail in of this slide. but there are certain things that we need to reduce and certain things that we need to increase. The one thing that we need to really increase is the resistance of individuals to these or susceptible host to this infectious agent. Vaccination is one way to do that, along with COVID-19 appropriate behaviors. Then we need to reduce the spread of this agent through direct as well as indirect transmission, and we just touch upon how do we do that in a minute. So basically, what is now everybody trying to do with this lockdown? I mean, what has everybody trying to do and is continuing to do is we can understand through the progression of COVID-19. Basically, how has it progressed so far? It's basically what has happened is it is began travel related, so people from affected countries have come to India, and then that's how it started. Then there was a local transmission that happened within the country, and then what happened over there were larger transmissions that happened in certain localities, which at the time could have been contained, or were attempts were made to contain. However, the later stages of a progression of this disease is a widespread community transmission, where a large number of people get infected, and eventually, if none of this is controlled, then the disease kind of becomes endemic in the population, and it becomes like the disease of the uh, location that you are in. What we are trying to do is the strategies to break the chain of transmission, ideally so that India could not have progressed to a widespread community transmission. However, now we can see that there is some amount of community transmission that's going on, but however, breaking the chain is the key to really control this. How do we break this chain? How do we prevent this transmission is something that we will touch upon more in the coming slides. So there are basically three ways of preventing transmission. One is actually controlling the source of infection. Now, source of infection is essentially the infected people, especially, and the contacts of these infected people. The second step is to break the chain of transmission through COVID appropriate behaviors, the direct transmission as well as indirect transmission. And to reduce, the third way is to reduce susceptibility susceptibility of an individual or a host to this infection, and that is can be achieved through large scale vaccination. Talking a little about controlling the source of infection. The source of infection basically are, as I said, confirmed cases, which are symptomatic, pre-symptomatic cases, as well as the contact points. How do we control this? Large-scale testing is required to confirm the cases, and isolation of positive cases is what is to be done. Talk a little bit about testing. So this is something again which most of us are aware right now. The gold standard of testing is the RT-PCR test, and also an antigen test is used to diagnose and confirm COVID-19 cases. Antibodies tests are usually done for community screening, basically to understand the exposure of virus. So they are not essentially diagnostic tests. They are mostly used for, epidemiological screening test kind of. So you cannot rely on antibody tests for diagnosis per se. Then there are certain tests for prognosis, or basically detecting the severity of the infection. One of that is a CT scan, then the other tests are the D dimers and C-reactive proteins, interleukin 6, ferritin, etc. These are done during various stages of the infection to understand the severity of the infection, and these are actually prescribed by your treating doctors. Isolation again is containing one method of containing the source of infection. The isolation essentially is restricted to cases. So the rationale is basically separate the sick person from the healthy person to avoid transmission of infection. And of course, there needs to be an isolation of or home quarantine of contacts. So that basically separating potentially infected people from the healthier people, even if they are not symptomatic, asymptomatic so that the healthier persons are prevented from infection. Preventing transmission and breaking the chain of infection or transmission. So you need to break the chain of the direct infection. Breaking the chain of direct infection, direct spread would basically, technically, are all your COVID appropriate behaviors, and indirect spread is cleaning surfaces. So, one of the one of the measure to reduce the direct transmission is, of course, washing hands thoroughly. So if I can, if everybody is okay, and I know everybody knows that they need to wash their hands, it's like two happy birthday songs in your mind. However, there is a correct way of washing your hands, because your hands are not like flat surfaces. They have their own concavities and convexities, and therefore all the surfaces needs to be cleaned thoroughly. So the hand washing technique basically includes a lot of steps. The first step is actually just wetting your hands. Then take some soap in your hands. What you need to do is you rub the palm hands of the palm, so palm to palm. Okay. Then you rub it for like some time. Okay, if time permits, I'll take just 2-3 minutes on this. I know everybody knows about this, but if you could just join hands with me and try and do this yourself, that's how you can ensure that you clean your hands thoroughly. This is a small, like, a way of washing hands that I had learned in one of my in during my college days. So there's this kind of a, and we used to teach this to the pediatric patients through a form of a repetitive poem kind of a thing. Um, and this repetitive poem actually also ensures that you are washing your hands for those particular times, uh, for that particular time. So we'll just quickly do this. If you want, you guys can do it along with me, and so that this just fits into your head. So the step is the poem, or the the way that it is done is, so we'd say, uh, take the soap in your hand, and we say palm to palm, palm to palm, palm to palm, palm to palm 4 times. Okay. Then back of hands, change, back of hands, back of hands, between the fingers, between the fingers, between the fingers, between the fingers, back of fingers, back of fingers, change, back of fingers, back of fingers. Clean your thumb, clean your thumb, change, clean your thumb, clean your thumb. Center of the palm, you need to really actually go into the center of the palm, because there's a concavity there, and there are a lot of lines, and also you need to rub it thoroughly. So center of the palm, center of the palm, change, center of the palm, center of the palm. Then cleaning wrist, change, cleaning wrist, cleaning wrist. Then thoroughly wash your hands with water. Try to avoid touching the tap with your clean hands, especially if you're washing your hands in a public setting. However, at your homes, of course, you may be wanting to shut the tap with your hands. That's fine. Then wipe it with a clean towel or tissue, and then that's how you wipe your hands. It's a little bit touching upon the hand washing technique. We'll talk a little bit about masking. Mask is something which is, as we know, that uh, is very important to be wearing if you're venturing outside, or if you are in contact with with an infected person. Quickly on how to you handle masks again. You need to wash your hands. This is goes both for surgical as well as cloth masking. So you need to quickly wash your hands thoroughly, as we just seen. Then you pick up the mask with the strings of the mask. You pull the strings, you put it across in loop the loops around your ears. Then you press the mask and you snugly fit it, and after that you do not touch the mask at all. While removing also, what you need to do is clean your hands again. Remove it with these strings. In case if you want not going to wash the mask immediately, or if you have to reuse the mask for some reason, then you need to put it in a nice tight Ziploc bag, and then you can reuse, or you can go back and wash the washable mask in soap water, dry it thoroughly, and then after that again wash your hands. Similarly, dispose of the disposable mask completely, and again clean your hands. This is very important, especially in the light of the new variants that we have seen are coming up. So, double masking is what an US CDC study has concluded, that this is more effective than a regular single masking, especially for the newer variants. How do we do that? Is basically a surgical mask, and over that there is a cloth mask that needs to be worn. There's a technique to do that. So first thing that you do is you take your surgical mask, you tie a knot, okay, on the loops of the surgical mask, so that it better fits your fits more snugly to your entire face. So you tie a knot on both sides, as it is shown here, on the loops, then it fits more snugly to your face, and over that you need to put your regular snugly fitting cloth mask. Now there would be arguments, that this basically would kind of make it even more difficult to breathe. However, the study says that if this is a little bit more tolerate, you can still tolerate this particular double masking. It will not really reduce any oxygen supply. The best way is any which ways we know none of us are actually going out for a long time, but in case if you're going for a short time to get some medicines, grocery, daily stuff, then it's preferable that you wear a double mask than a single mask. Avoid So the idea is surgical mask over that cloth mask. You cannot wear a surgical mask or a cloth on cloth or any other mask. N95 still remains the gold standard, and it does seal the face and filters up to 95% particles. So if you're using an N95, then you do not need to double up, according to the study. A little bit about masking. Reducing indirect transmission again. So basically this is, as I said, touching any of the surfaces. So avoid touching any surfaces which is unnecessary, especially if it belongs to somebody you do not know, or in public places, etc. You need to disinfect and dispose things of very in a particular manner. Disinfection, it is better that you use a 1% sodium hypochlorite solution. Now, this is basically, you may say, Are ye kahan milega? Where will I get all of this? So, your basic, and I'm not promoting a brand or anything, but something like a basic Domex or any other disinfectants that you get in the market, they are mostly sodium hypochlorite. So you see the percentage of sodium hypochlorite in the content. They are concentrates basically. You can dilute it accordingly, and you can create a 1% sodium hypochlorite solution with that. And you can also clean. In case if you do not find a sodium hypochlorite solution, a hydrochloric acid solution, which are your other disinfectants, that is something which you can also use. You have to dilute it accordingly. The idea is to release the nascent chlorine to basically clean surfaces. So that's how we reduce indirect transmission. Susceptibility to infection is basically reduced by, as I said, vaccination. We need to improve the immunity of the individuals, and that's basically done by vaccination. So what vaccines essentially do is, and this is like a funny example that I give, but in the older movies, we used to see that, some villains are given like a photo of the person, an image, and said that, oh, you need to kill this person. And that's how the person who's fighting or killing that person understands that. So this is the person, this is how this person looks and is, and that's who I should be attacking. So vaccine essentially does the same kind of thing. If I have to give you a very crude analogy, it's basically exposes your immune systems, your fighting mechanisms to the structure of the virus, either the structure or the protein of the virus, and removing the infecting part of the virus altogether, or using any other vehicles to actually expose your immune system to this particular structure of the vaccine. And that's how your immune system basically understands that, oh, this is the thing that I need to attack. This is something foreign, this is going to harm me, and that's how it starts building up its forces. Two doses minimum, booster doses are usually given in vaccinations, not just COVID, other vaccines like hepatitis, HPV, etc. also have booster doses. That's just so that, in case if your body is, may forget how the virus looks, it's just that you are boosting it up again, showing that image again to, really develop that army of your immunity. Um, yeah, that's that. That's basically how the vaccines work. And these vaccines, COVID-19 especially, are annual vaccines. So you need to keep on showing that image every year. Just talking a little bit about the vaccination drive in the country. So it's currently eligible for all healthcare workers and frontline workers, of course. Citizens who are 45 years and above are going to receive free vaccinations in central government run vaccine centers. It has been, there's a recent circular that from May 1st onwards, anybody above 18 is eligible to really take vaccines. However, now more and more news is coming that it's depend on subject to the availability of vaccines. However, the eligibility is there from 1st of May. The vaccines that are approved for use in India, there are three vaccines that are currently approved for use in India. Two vaccines, Covishield and Covaxin, were already being used since 16th of January when the vaccination drive actually began. Covishield is developed by AstraZeneca and it's being manufactured by the Serum Institute of India, and Covaxin is indigenously developed as well as manufactured by Bharat Biotech. Sputnik is another vaccine which is basically developed by the Gamaleya Research Institute of Moscow, and currently it is going to be manufactured by Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. However, there are the Russian direct investment of fraternity. I don't know what the F stands for, but they have also signed with additional manufacturers to ramp up the production capacity. Just to give you a little bit of a comparison, like just not a comparison, just information about different vaccines. Sputnik, so the vaccine manufacturer is Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech, and Dr. Reddy's lab. The route for all the vaccination is intramuscular, is usually given in the muscle of your arm, upper arm. A dose is 0.5 ml. Two doses are needed for the completion of the entire course or schedule of vaccination. The schedule is basically for Covishield, for now it's 6 to 8 weeks apart. For Bharat Biotech Covaxin, it's 4 weeks apart. Serum, it's yet to come into the country, but it says that it will be 3 weeks apart. Some of the reports also say that it could be 3 weeks to 3 months apart. These vaccinations currently are not recommended during pregnancy or lactating mothers, or as well as persons below 18 years of age, simply because they have not been included in the vaccination trials so far. So there has not been any studies on these subjects. Adverse effects, most of the adverse effects are basically milder, ranging from pain at injection site, a little bit of fever, some headaches, or maybe some dizziness, and some nausea, vomiting, etc. But they are controlled by your regular medication. If there are anything which you feel post vaccination is not mild, or it's you think needs medical attention, we request you to go ahead and speak to your treating doctor or family physician, whoever is available. You may have also heard about certain clotting, certain side effects across the country and ban on the AstraZeneca vaccine. However, there have been studies which have shown that the uh, complications were not directly related to the use of the vaccine. That means there were certain other factors involved, which cause those complications, and the complications are not directly, or the complications are not directly caused by the vaccine itself. So those studies are also available. So for now, all the vaccines that are being allowed in India are pretty safe, and it provides more benefits than any of the side effects that they could provide. I could talk a little bit on vaccine hesitancy. Uh, Vaccine hesitancy basically is something wherein somebody is not willing to take the vaccine for some or the other reason. The most common reasons are, oh, let me see, wait and see what happens in that person after he takes vaccine. Is it safe, is it not safe? Probably you are very philanthropic in saying that, oh, somebody else needs it more than me. However, that somebody else is not going to be benefited unless each one of us is actually taking the vaccine. So that's something which we need to take care of. Some people are concerned about the possible side effects, but studies have shown that the side effects are relatively milder and taken care by regular medications. I don't believe I need one, don't know if it will work. I just don't like vaccines, or they are very expensive. On it, in rare cases, it could be because of religious beliefs. However, we need to understand that these vaccines are absolutely safe. Just a little bit on vaccine hesitancy, where effectiveness, efficacy of vaccines are talking about. And this for the next minute, going to talk a little technical. So some of you may not understand this, and it's absolutely fine. It's not meant for you to understand, but just to harp upon the point that the efficacy of the vaccine, or that one's better, this one's better. And so now right now it's really important for you to get vaccinated. So the efficacy of vaccine essentially is coming out in a clinical trial. When we do a trial, there are the thousands of people are involved in the trial. There are two sets of people. One is the control, one is the actual subject. Now, both are, the control is given the placebo, the subjects are given the actual vaccine, and then there is after a period of time, they see how many people have actually been infected. There could be some people in the control group that are infected, some people in the subject group that are infected. Now, the ratio amongst this, so for example, if there are 150 out of thousands of people who are infected, if that ratio is, say, 75 in the control group and 75 in the vaccination group, then that technically means, oh, that the vaccine is absolutely not effective. If it says that all the 150 people that are infected are in the control group and none of the people in the subject group is infected, so the vaccine is 100% effective. And therefore that's how they come up to these various effectiveness percentages. But a very important point to note here is that this efficacy is also a direct function of when the tests were done. So a lot of these relatively more effective vaccines with a higher efficacy rate could have been done in the phase where the infection, I mean, the peak was, low, and therefore probably there's an illusion of higher efficacy percentage. But otherwise, in I mean, the others could have been done in a lot of peak reports. So if there's more than 75-80% of efficacy in that peak time, then these vaccines are actually very effective, to say so, if I may say so. So the whole gist of this communication, right, which we had for a last minute, is that these vaccines are all safe, and the idea is not to actually say that oh, if I've taken the vaccine, I will never get an infection. That is not the case. What these vaccines are purely trying to do is to prevent a severe, moderate to severe disease. So it's not that if you take in a vaccine, then you can remove your mask and start hugging people right now. Unfortunately, how much ever we need those hugs, we cannot do that. We need to understand that the vaccines are to be taken. So even if you get an infection, then the severity of that is pretty low. So again, to reiterate that the vaccines are safe, and given a chance, we should go about it. There are certain FAQs that are there on vaccination. Um, so let me just um, I'll not take up all of this because there's a fair part of the presentation that's left. A person confirmed with or suspected infection of COVID-19 can be vaccinated, but should at least defer the vaccination for a minimum of 14 days or till he's asymptomatic. It is also recommended for a person who's recovered from a COVID infection and wait for 48 weeks after complete recovery to boost his immunity and to provide that added immunity or protection. Then there are certain contraindications, basically anaphylactic and allergic reactions, people with the history of that. Right now, pregnancy and lactation and children, people below 18 years are contraindicated. Temporary contraindications are basically, as I said, who are infected with COVID or who have been given convalescent plasma for that, and any other disease where person is acutely infected or is hospitalized till such time it is free of that illness. Bleeding, history of bleeding or coagulation. If you have an active coagulating disorder, then you need to really take your doctor's talk to your treating physician. People who have had certain cardiac problems and and are on blood thinners like aspirin, etc. For them, vaccines are recommended. They need not stop their medication. If you still have doubts, please contact your treating physician. Immunity issues is again needs to be taken in a little after the consultation with your doctor. Then you need to wait after 30 minutes of vaccination in the vaccination center. That's a preventive measure that you should need to take. There are no medications that need to be avoided. If there are any doubts, please consult your treating physician. Chronic diseases like neurological, cardiac, pulmonary disorders, the vaccine is not contraindicated. In fact, it is said to be providing benefit with persons with higher risk for comorbidities. But in doubt, please speak with your specialist physician. People with cancer, diabetes, hypertension, etc. can take this vaccine. It is safe. It is being considered safe. You need to continue with all the COVID-19 appropriate behaviors that we've talked about, includes hand washing, disinfecting surfaces, social distancing. Then does the vaccine so basically these vaccines, as I said, develops an immune response, so there will be a better response to the mutated variants as well. And there have been studies that some vaccines are providing better protection. However, any vaccine you take is going to be providing you a reasonable benefit, a reasonable boost in your immunity. So, whichever, it's always better than without the vaccine. Adequate immune response still takes about 2 to 3 weeks after the completion of the entire vaccination schedule. Please avoid alcohol, smoking, etc., and any substance abuse after vaccination. But it does not, although alcohol is said to not impair the effectiveness of the vaccine. And you need to receive the same vaccine as you've received in the first dose for your second dose as well, to give you complete protection. I'll quickly run through these presentation, the rest of the presentation, and then we'll open the house for question answer. So this is basically a clinical guidance from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for guidance of management of adult COVID patients. If there is no shortness of breath or then the disease is considered mild and home isolation is recommended. If the SpO2 is between 90 to 93, then on room air and the respiratory rate is that high, then there's an admission required. And if the SpO2 falls less than 90% on room air, then ICU is required. Again, this is purely dependent on the clinical case. So this is not like the Bible of the situation. You need to consult your treating doctor. This is just some guidelines that are being given by the ministry to follow. If you are into home isolation, or if you have been suggested home isolation, then you need to keep your physical distance, wear your mask, do your hand hygiene, or take all the medications provided by your treating doctor, and monitor your temperature as well as oxygen saturation. If you have a lot of difficulty in breathing, more than a very high grade fever for about lasting more than 5 days, then and if you have any high risk, then high risk like more than 60 years, or diabetes, lung disease, liver, kidney disease, etc., then you need to really monitor yourself. How to use a pulse oximeter? This is again everybody knows now, but it's just that you need to first remove if there's any coloring agents on your nails. Then you need to lie down, sit down and rest for 5 minutes, so you're breathing normally and you're not anxious before that. The preferred method is to rest, keep the hands close to your chest, and then switch the pulse oximeter on. Sometimes the readings fluctuate, so you need to wait till the reading stabilizes. That's your reading, where the reading is not changed at least for 5 seconds. And then you read the reading, and then you monitor it in your logbook. You need to take this at least from 3 times a day. And otherwise, if you can call 1075, or if you're feeling seriously ill, then you need to really seek medical attention. There's a 6-minute walk test that has been recommended, especially if if you are a home isolated. So basically, what you need to do is check your pulse ox, sorry, SpO2 levels using the pulse ox, just like how we just I told you right now, in a relaxed position, in a very relaxed manner. Then what you need to do is walk normally for 6 minutes without pausing. So you need a watch also for this. Without pausing, just walk normally for 6 minutes, especially on a hard flat surface like the floor of your room. Your oximeter should be on your finger while you're walking. You need to walk for 6 minutes, and you need to monitor that pulse ox reading after 6 minutes. If there is not too much change, or it's like 1 or 2% change, then probably you need not really worry. But try to do this exercise at least twice a day to keep a visual on your numbers. If the level drops below 93 or 3% after your 6 minutes walking, then you need to seek immediate medical attention. If you have asthma or any other COPDs, then it is not recommended for these. This test is not recommended for those people. And older citizens who are probably above 60 years of age, maybe reduce the walking time, say by 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes instead of 6 minutes. Then something on proning. So proning is basically done for self-care to maintain oxygen levels, and also to improvise the the breathing conditions. It is basically if the patient is feeling difficulty and SpO2 decreases below 94, is recommended. So it's also done in a hospital setting. A lot of hospitalized patients are also being recommended proning. However, it is important that you do this again in consultation with your treating physician and on the recommendation itself. How do we do this? It's just you need some pillows, 3 to 4 pillows for this. One pillow goes, under your neck, head. Uh, then a couple of 1 or 2 pillows, from your chest to your thigh, and then a couple of pillows below the shins of your feet. Then how does this work is that you need to do this proning position for 30 minutes to 2 hours, maximum 2 hours you can do this, but you can minimum 30 minutes. Then what you need to do is you need to change your position. You need to lay on one side with one of your hands under your head and the other one on your near to your chest, and you to turn on your right side and sit for 30 minutes. One of your sides, either right left, sit for 30 more minutes in this position. Then you need to sit up, so you can basically sit on just like I'm sitting. And you need to put a stool or something with pillows, and where your legs are also flat, and something like an angulated position like this. That's how you need to sit for another 30 minutes. Then you need to again lie back down for 30 minutes on the other side. So if right side, if you've been doing this right side first time, then left side on the second time, and then back to your position one. Uh, that's how these regular alterations can be done to improve breathing. Caution is basically, especially after meals, you should avoid this, and this proning needs to be easily tolerable. So if it's saying 30 minutes and you can do it only for 20 minutes without really having any pains or any discomfort, you can do that. Pillows can be adjusted slightly based on your comfort, and it needs to be avoided in pregnancy, patients with deep vein thrombosis or major cardiac conditions, or if you have any orthopedic issues like unstable spine, femur or pelvic fractures, etc. Just a little bit touching on the COVID-19 and children. So it has been seen that these variants are affecting children more than it was affecting last year. However, a lot of pediatricians are still saying that these diseases are mild, still mild. This symptoms could include some fever, diarrhea, vomiting, gastric symptoms like diarrhea, vomiting, body pains, weakness. So these are mostly similar to the viral flu or viral gastroenteritis that usually affects children. It is usually lasting for 2 to 3 days. That's the general clinical things that are happening in children. However, there's a good news to this. So far what is happening is that these children are responding very well to regular medications. Most of these are responding very well to regular medication. They do not need any they are not needing any antivirals, etc. So far. Most of the times their oxygen saturations are also not affected so much, so it's not affecting lungs so much, unless it's, God forbid, a very severe infection. Most of these cases are all being treated at home only, so they are also not needing any hospitalization or intensive care. However, having said that, these are our children, so we need to be extra cautious, and therefore there are certain do's and don'ts. So if some symptoms are occurring, you need to keep the child at home. You need to decide who the primary caregiver will be. That person needs to be with the child. We need to understand that although the symptoms are very mild in children, they are potential carriers, especially for elderly group. So the primary caregiver needs to take all the precautions. You need to consult your doctor, do an RT-PCR, and if fever lasts more than 48 hours, your doctor may suggest you to do certain blood tests to do that. do not, and I repeat, do not take any of these symptoms lightly. Don't think that the kid must have eaten something yesterday and therefore his stomach is upset, or he must have just had a cold drink last night and that's why he's having some cold and sore throat. Keep an eye, watch these children. Keep them home, keep them safe. Do not, everything else can wait. And especially in these times, the grandparents want to be close with the children. They want to take care of them out of their love, but that's not the time. That needs to wait. You need to protect both the elderly as well as children along with yourself. So you need do not keep the elderly people close to the children, because as I said, the disease is mild in children. However, they are potential carriers. So um, then children mm, uh, can wear fabric masks. It's better they wear fabric masks so that they're breathable, and the steps remain the same. So I've touched upon that. So thank you so much for really listening to me. I will now open the house for question answers, and I see there are a few already. So there are a couple of questions, a few questions which are like repetitive, which are asking if their elderly or parents have certain health conditions, then what should they do? Should they take the vaccine or no? So as I said, vaccines have not been contraindicated with people with chronic diseases or with medications going on. However, in case of any doubt, if you need to consult your what are the chances of reinfection if somebody has recovered? There are chances of reinfection. However, if you're vaccinated, the severity of the disease is milder. Sorry, we cannot. I am not right now in the position of suggesting any oxygen or ventilators or medicines. Or any other. So we have an Anviti page that we are preparing, which is giving you real time information. Correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, but it's providing you real time information, and it's going to be up and running soon enough. So you can also visit that to find certain government or local authority information. Should we wait for Pfizer vaccine? I am not sure when the Pfizer vaccine will come. And as we've discussed and I've talked in length about the efficacy and how it is a function of when the clinical trials are also done. So do not go on the numbers, or do not go only on the numbers. Whichever vaccine is available, and if you can take the vaccines, please go ahead and take the vaccines. The benefits definitely outweigh the uh, any of the ill effects of the vaccines. Breastfeeding and pregnant ladies, lactating and pregnant ladies, my son, I myself actually trying to hoping that there is a clearer answer, but as I said, right now they are not indicated simply because there are not been clinical trials that have been done on these people. So yes, right now it is contraindicated. The vaccines that are available in India are not indicated for lactating mothers. So a question says, okay, how do you prevent or avoid getting infected if somebody in your society, in your building has been infected? You need to follow all the COVID appropriate behavior. You need to wash your hands repeatedly. You need to avoid touching unnecessary surfaces, and you need to maintain your mask and social distancing. Uh, how long do we need to stop consuming alcohol? There is no clear-cut answer to this, but please stop as much as possible. You cannot mix the vaccines, sir. You have to take the same vaccine. If you've taken Covishield for the first vaccine, you have to take Covishield for the second. And if you've taken Covaxin for the first, then you need to take Covaxin for the second dose as well. There are certain questions on certain medications that people are taking, the names of the medication, and if they can take vaccine. These are very case related. As I said, according to the FAQs set by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, vaccinations are not, medications are not contraindicated, but kindly, uh, you know, consult your doctor, treating physician. So how to handle groceries? You need to, so basically fruits and vegetables, you need to thoroughly wash them under running water before you consume them. For any packets or deliveries that you're taking, you need to sanitize them properly. Preferably wear a mask when you're handling them. Clean the surfaces. Then just throw these packets off, the coverage, the packaging, and you can use the product inside. Wash your hands after you've handled this package thoroughly, as you know, as we've talked about it, these steps, and then remove your mask, throw it away. So the idea is basically not touching a surface and then touching any of your openings. Do we need to have rest after vaccination? It's preferable. It's not really indicated by any of the ministries, so that way. Uh, Someone's asking, my RT-PCR test is not come. It is gonna take time. I still have symptoms. If you have any symptoms, especially in these days, which you may think is just a simple cold or flu, please do not think that. Um, it's basically any cases now that you're seeing, please consider yourself as a potential source of infection. Isolate yourself from the rest of your family, as much as possible, till your results are awaited. If you are, even if you're negative, you may still continue for another, some time to really isolate yourself. So the bottom line is, do not take anything lightly, any of the symptoms. It may not affect you that much. It may just potentially affect the younger children or the older people in your allergies are contraindicated for vaccination. But if you have very specific allergies, then you can speak with your physician, to actually. So the toddlers or children, how do we protect that? We need to protect them, by basically keeping them indoors. A little bit of extra screen time is not going to hamper them. Just do anything to entertain them inside your homes, and avoid any kind of exposure. Most of these questions, the remaining questions are yeah, on angioplasty or stent placement, or if they can go take vaccination, if there are certain cataract related issues in vaccination. So these are all really case to case basis. I would suggest you please speak with your physician. Um, Infected person, if loses smell and taste, how many days it will take to come back to normal? It really depends from person to person. But it definitely will come back if the case is very mild. I am not the correct person to talk about home remedies or Ayurvedic treatments, etc. However, anything that you feel is not going to affect you and may improve your immunity and is not going to affect you, and if it's just a food ingredient, then you can go ahead. There are a couple of questions on inhaling steam. So inhaling steam will definitely is also one way to prevent any kind of respiratory infection. It has been sorry. It is being recommended, so you can please go ahead and continue taking steam. So the bottom line is that anything that is not going to harm you. So this is, as the name suggests, it's a novel coronavirus. It's absolutely everything is new. The resources are getting updated every day and by the hour, I would say. So so I mean, whatever does not harm you, just don't overdo anything. But if it doesn't harm you, and if there's an iota that will give you any protection, you can please go ahead and do that. You need not quarantine parcels. You need to thoroughly disinfect it, remove the packaging, throw it away, clean your hands, remove your mask, throw it away, clean your hands. I think that's about it. Most the clinical questions I would really direct. Please go and speak with your treating physician, because your case, it will vary from case to case. The recording of this session shall be available on our Anviti website in a few days, maybe early next week. So in case if somebody has missed this session, and if this has benefited you, and if you think that this will benefit the others, you may please share the link. The link has been shared in the chat box by Carol. Thank you, Carol. And I think, yeah. So Carol is being kind enough and going to try to get the video up by today itself. So hopefully, you know, hopefully it helps more and more people. You can share the links with anybody that you feel can use any of this information that has been shared today. It will be a pleasure to be able to help a lot of people. And with that note, please be safe. Please take care of yourself and stay healthy. And thank you for indulging us today. And you have been a lovely audience. And with that note, we take your leave. Thank you so much. Take care.